One of our core values here at Unity by the Bay is inclusivity. And a couple years ago, when we did a deep dive on our core values, it kept coming up that this was a place where people felt they could belong. And the difference between fitting in and belonging is when I show up and I fit in, I alter my behavior so it's okay that I'm in your presence. Belonging is I show up and I belong. I don't have to change who I am. I don't have to pretend that I'm something I'm not. I don't have to hide parts of myself to be accepted in the community. Inclusivity, in my meditation, I kept coming up with this idea of making room, making space. And so I asked myself, what does that have to do with inclusivity, and how do I talk about that? And what I came to was this knowing that inclusivity, if we want to be inclusive, we have to make room. And we all hear the analogy of inviting people to have a seat at the table. And when we make room, what we do is we're sitting at our table and we look around and we say, who's not here? Not, yeah, you can come in and have a seat at the table if you want. Nobody's going to move over. Nobody's going to make room for you. You figure out how to be involved at this table. But making room is looking around and seeing whose voice is not being heard. What diversity is missing in my life? Who is looking for a place to belong? And can I make space for them? Can I make room for them? I was also reading, every once in a while, I go through my old Charles Fillmore books. Charles Fillmore was one of the co-founders, with his wife Myrtle, of the Unity movement. And if you've heard me talk before, you know I'm not a fan of Charles' writing because it's so dense and heavy. I love Myrtle's writing. But Charles had it going on. He really did. And one of the things that he talks about is the idea that every person is an expression of the divine. Every single person is an expression of divinity. And if we believe that, if we want to embrace that, then any act of seclusion is turning our face away from God. Any act of exclusion is blasphemy. Let's think about that. If the guy down the street is an expression of God and I don't agree with his lifestyle, what does that mean for me? Now, I'm not saying that it's our job to accept and embrace poor behavior. That's not what we're talking about here. What we're talking about here is people showing up as who and what they are, whether that be sexual orientation, gender identity, race, ethnicity, job, or lack thereof, age, religion, country of origin. When I look at my neighbor down the street who I don't understand and I think, oh, those people, oh, everybody's a little racist. Now, in my experience, when I tell white people, which the majority of our audience at Unity by the Bay is white, when I tell white people everybody's a little racist, people will say, "Not me. I'm not." Inclusivity is not passive. It is active. So if I'm sitting in my comfortable little space in the world and I am not actively inclusive, what am I doing? Now I know that as a white woman, and as a cisgendered white woman, when I was born, if you don't know what that means, when I was born, they said to my mother, "Congratulations, it's a girl." And I grew up and I said, "You're right." So as a cisgendered white woman, I understand that there is a vast amount of life experiences that I know nothing about. I just don't know because it's outside of my life experience. But inclusivity asks us to open our eyes and open our awareness and be curious and believe people when they tell you their life experience. Believe people when they say, "I'm experiencing something that's hurtful. I'm feeling excluded. This system is against me." If you don't experience that, do you really believe that means it doesn't exist? To me, inclusivity is a spiritual practice. How can I be curious about another person's experience? How can I honor the divinity in the person in front of me or the person down the street? How can I honor the sacredness of every human being? Well, the first step is being curious and understanding that I don't know it all and I haven't experienced it all. And being open and curious to another person's life experience. As a woman, I have seen over the decades the culture change around gender roles, around what's okay in the workplace. Back in the, I'm not going to age myself. Back in the day, I was in sales and I sold transformers and electrical components. And back then, I was the only woman salesperson, maybe in the industry. At least the conferences that I went to, I was the only one. And the amount of harassment, and I'd say even assault that I received in that industry, I could, if it were today, I could sue them and be rich. It was a lot. Verbal violence, physical violence, being touched without my consent. The things that I heard that people would dare to say, like we would all gasp now today. Our culture has shifted and changed. And a lot of those things just are not acceptable anymore. And if we open ourselves to curiosity, we can ask ourselves, what am I doing today that in 20 years I will deem unacceptable? What kind of conversations do I have with my friends today that will be a little cringeworthy in a decade or two? When I was a teenager, the community that I grew up in and the schools I went to were very homophobic. Very homophobic. And I'll admit that when I was a teenager, if my friends were into gay bashing and beating up gay people, I would have participated. That's hard for me to admit. Especially because when I kissed my best friend and liked it, I felt nothing but shame. My best friend was a girl. I felt nothing but shame. And we said, nobody can know about this. None of our friends, certainly none of our family. And back then it was popular for my friend group to get fake IDs and get into clubs and bars. And my friend and I, who I was madly in love with, by the way, my friend and I got fake IDs and we went to a lesbian bar. And I'm telling you, it was an eye-opening experience. Eye-opening. Here were women loving women, women dancing together, laughing together, wearing all kinds of different outfits that had me feeling shy. Oh my gosh, that carabiner with the jingling keys made my heart go a-flutter. And I came home, it was a few years later, I came home with a friend who, she was a lesbian, although not mine, and my family responded in such a way that I felt shame all over again, even though this girl wasn't even my girlfriend. I felt shame. My mother said, "Oh God, I hope Sarah's not turning lesbian." My sister tried to tell her, you don't turn. Ay. And we live in a day today where there are people who feel shame. All these years later, people who feel shame in their hearts about themselves simply for being themselves. And our invitation today is to be curious, to open ourselves up and say, okay, this person loves differently than I love. Or this person lives differently than I live. Or this person is just different than I am. That doesn't mean they're wrong or bad. And we all, I think, especially in New Thought communities, we all kind of believe that in theory, right? Be yourself, we say. Just not like that. Don't make me uncomfortable. You are welcome. Oh, please don't do that here. I think I might have shared this story before, but years ago I was at a Unity conference in Unity Village in Missouri, and I was at a I was in a class getting my CEUs. Don't worry, I'm keeping myself educated. Getting my CEUs, and this was, I don't even remember the class. It might have been ethics, it might have been something else. I don't even remember. And there was a fellow minister, although I was not a minister yet, so starry-eyed Sarah in a class with future colleagues. These are ordained unity ministers. I am so starry-eyed. I think these people walk on water because they're ministers. Okay, that's not how it is, folks, just so you know. Anyway, so this woman raises her hand. She's a unity minister, and she says, I have this guy in my community who's dating 2 women in the community. And it's making everyone uncomfortable. And at first, you don't really understand what she's saying. It sounds like, oh my God, like love triangle drama. No, he was dating 2 women. They all knew about it. They showed up to church, all 3 of them together. And she asked, sometimes he holds both their hands during the sermon. It's making everyone uncomfortable. Should I ask them to stop? How do I ask them to stop? And I don't remember exactly what the presenter's answer was, but she gave kind of a non-answer, and then we moved on. And we changed the subject, and we started talking about something else. Now I'm sitting there. I'm sitting there, and I'm literally getting sicker and sicker and sicker. And the reason is because sometime before this, years before this, I had a talk with my body, and I said, I want to stop making bad choices. I want to start doing the right thing for me. I want you to communicate directly to me. And ever since then, it's throw up or do the right thing. I'm not kidding. So I'm sitting there and I'm getting sicker and sicker, and I know that I have 3 options. 1, leave the room. 2, sit here and get sick in front of everybody. Or 3, raise my hand and say something. So as I'm sitting there with all of my idols, I raised my hand, and I was shaking. And somebody comes, gives me the mic, and everybody's like, stand up. And one woman literally grabbed my arm and made me stand up. I wanted to sit so I didn't have to look at people's faces. And I stood up and I said that I found it interesting that when we were all posed with a very difficult question that made us uncomfortable, we collectively chose not to talk about it. And those people at that church community might live and love differently, but this isn't any different than it was back in, I forget the decade, 30s or 40s, 1930s or 40s, when the unity movement, Charles and Myrtle, had to ask themselves, we haven't allowed black people to be ordained. We've let them study with us. We've let them serve, but we don't allow them to be licensed unity teachers or ministers. And that's wrong, and they changed their mind. And then later in the I forget if it was 80s or 90s, which is just a minute ago. Okay, that's aging myself. But they weren't ordaining openly gay people. They knew they had gay ministers, but gosh, just don't talk about it. You can be gay and you can be a minister, just don't talk about it. Don't be out. And at some point, the unity movement realized that's wrong. You can be gay and be an ordained minister. And whatever year that was, I think it was 2019. Now we have people in our community in adult, consenting, safe, loving, kind relationships, and we have the nerve to say, don't do that here? Who do we think we are? We think we're spiritually mature, while on the other hand saying, I don't want to see that because it makes me uncomfortable. You change your life and your way of being, your way of loving, so I am comfortable. That's not being spiritually mature. That's being a hypocrite. When we were talking about our flag game, and those of you who are watching us online, we have a pride flag display in the other room, and when we were talking about doing this, both in the UBB community, I ask a lot of people for help. So both here and when I talked about it with my colleagues, everybody had an opinion on which flags not to include so we don't push people too hard. And so I had a bunch of them pulled out, and I'm doing this, and last night at 10 p.m. I redid the whole thing because I don't want to be a hypocrite. Some of those flags might make some of you uncomfortable. Every flag I found online, we included. If we want to really live the teachings of Jesus, really live the teachings of Myrtle and Charles Fillmore, really live the truth that we know intellectually, we know to be true, we must open ourselves up to be curious. Not only curious of others, but curious of my own mind, our own hearts. Curious, how can I be more inclusive? How can I make room for more people? How can I be the living expression of Christ? How can I be the living expression of divine love? Well, it starts with being curious and being willing to be uncomfortable. That feels heavy. I'm sure I have something lighter in my notes. No, it's all heavy. It's all heavy because this is where the rubber meets the road, right? This is where we have to say, just because I don't aggressively say racist things, or just because I don't aggressively gay bash, or just because I don't aggressively take action against my neighbor, therefore, I am loving and heart-centered. Spirituality, inclusivity, living as the Christ is active, not passive. It is our job to face the discomfort that we feel and move beyond it. Have any of you had something? A couple hands. Those difficult conversations are difficult. For me too. But with practice, we can become comfortable with being uncomfortable. We can become comfortable in discomfort. Whenever I'm having a difficult conversation with someone and I'm feeling that feeling of anxiety, and I don't know if I'm going to hurt their feelings, and I don't want to do that, and I'm going to, really be heart-centered, and I'm going to say what I need to say with as much kindness and compassion as possible, but I am going to say the thing, whatever the thing is. Every single time I do it, the next time is easier. I promise. It's a learned skill. We were sitting in a circle with one of the groups here at Unity by the Bay, and we were having a difficult conversation, and somebody said to me, "You're so calm, how do you do this?" And I said, "Oh, I'm not calm. I'm terrified. Y'all are going to get so upset you leave." And dropped from the team, the group that we were in. I'm terrified. Yet we do it anyway. That's being inclusive, is showing up authentically as ourselves and making room for others to do the same. That's a little lighter, right? All right. I went on and on and on. So we're going to skip our meditation, but I do invite you to bring to mind, okay, we're not skipping them. I'm sorry. I can't. Okay, we're going to do it anyway. It's one of those days, okay? Let's bring all of this to meditation, and I'll keep it short. So as we just let all the headiness go, all the intellectual exercise of this go, and we just allow ourselves to become fully present in this moment. Focus inward. Acknowledge and embrace that indwelling sacred core of your being. The part of you that is the fountain of your holiness. Acknowledge it. Expand your awareness to the people near you. Whatever you know about them or don't know about them, acknowledge that at the core of their being, they are sacred and holy. Expand your awareness to more people. Maybe fill the room with your awareness. Acknowledge that each person is sacred and holy. Expand your awareness past the walls around you, across the streets, maybe to the entire town. Imagine the people, different ages, different colors, different religions, houses of worship, synagogues and mosques filled with people. Hiking trails, the church of nature. Acknowledge that each person in that vast awareness is sacred and holy. And as we bring our awareness back in from the city to across the street, to the room we're in, to those near us, and back to our own hearts. How might I make room for others? In what ways have I been exclusionary? How might I step into inclusivity as a practice? Let's hold that for a moment in silence. And as a collective, right here, right now, whether you're in the room or online, let's intentionally open our minds to the fact that other expressions of divinity are worth knowing, worth seeing. Open our hearts purposefully and intentionally to the experience of inclusivity. Open our hearts to the act of curiosity to embrace as many expressions of God as we can. And so it is. Amen. That wasn't too heavy, was it? Okay, good. I think we have music with Dennis and Jason, or no? What are we doing? Somebody knows what we're doing. Dennis.